I don't know if my office was the guinea pig for some of that work because based on the increases in encampments, I know that we had asked staff for data and some statistics, and you were able to furnish them. Obviously, they were not complete, they were incomplete, but we were really pleased to be able to continue to have metrics to track the success of some of the work. And I think that that's something that's not reported as much. I mean, the time that the encampments are in place are often unsatisfactory to everyone, whether that's the people in the encampments or the impacted community members that are around the encampments themselves. But what we do find is after, especially in my ward, after a prolonged period of engagement, often there is success in terms of transitioning people to housing. So I was just wondering if we'll also be including indicators that track successful housing transitions.
Thank you for the question, Chair, and I appreciate that feedback. I think the major things we're looking to track is kind of three elements. One, what is the level of problem across wards? And we want to have good data to be able to know exactly where these problems are so we can focus resources in there. So geographically tagged how many people are experiencing unsheltered homelessness. I'll mention with all of our data, we need to be understand that especially for tracking unsheltered data, it is the most difficult to track because these folks are the most transient in the community. So in terms of having unique identifiers, those kind of things, it is the most challenging. We also want to make sure that we're protecting people's safety. As we know, if you're in an encampment, everybody in an encampment wants to be in housing for the most part. We need to keep doing a good job as the community of making sure that there is adequate housing, keep focusing on our 10-year plan and achieving those affordable housing targets. I think the other portion that we want to also show is there's two other components that the social services side is really proud of. A lot of these encampments we resolve through getting people into housing, as you had mentioned. We resolve encampments by ensuring that people move along within a reasonable time frame before we take that enforcement approach. And we also do want to highlight the need, and again, our partners at police, that when those type of interventions are beyond what we can do for social services. So in terms of the key metrics, we do really want to highlight too that portion of how many people are being housed because it's very significant in Ottawa compared to other communities.
And very briefly, I think we heard one of the delegates talk about the city of Winnipeg and looking at other bylaw types of responses. I'm just wondering, in general terms, what evidence exists about differentiated response models in other jurisdictions? So how are we leveraging the best practices in other jurisdictions and applying them to Ottawa?
Thank you, Chair. The Winnipeg model, I'll say, is one of the cornerstones that we've been focusing. This refresh will be brought to council on next year in terms of how they do their response model. They're actually very similar to what we're currently doing in Ottawa here, but they do have a better dispatch mechanism. As I was saying, residents in Ottawa are getting bounced a lot around between internal city services, but also with their outreach providers. So really, Winnipeg is one of those ones we look to that they have a really good mechanism to do this, and that's what we're moving towards is Ottawa. We actually, in terms of conducting this work over the last year and a half, have done extensive environmental scans around Canada and internationally. I will say no community has completely resolved this, like found the magic, this is what you have to do. Also, the bodies of research evidence out there in terms of like peer-reviewed articles, there isn't as much evidence to the degree that we have for example, Housing First programs. So what we are doing is having those individual chats with other municipalities who have had varying levels of success about what elements can we pick and choose. And Winnipeg, I would say, is one of the most successful that we've seen in Canada. And again, a big basis of where we're switching and updating our current encampment.
Well, I'm happy that we're analyzing other jurisdictions for their best practices, and I thank the mover for this motion because I think it does provide a roadmap for evidence-based improvement in our encampment responses. That was one of the reasons why my office had asked for data, because I really do believe that by analyzing the data and current practices, we can identify gaps and encourage stakeholders as well to work in deeper partnership with us, with a goal to developing a more effective approach that really serves everyone in our community. So I really do support the approach that takes a more systematic review. So once again, I want to thank the mover. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor King. Councillor Carr.
Yeah, thanks. I'll be quick. I really appreciated hearing the discussion. I'll note you mentioned Matthew Perry House, but I think there's also about 60 units that are going to become available as a result of the Heart Hub shortly. Is that correct?
Chair, yes, that's correct.
Yeah, that's it. There was some, it's always nice to hear that there's some hope on the horizon amidst all the doom and gloom. I just have a question, just, listening to the conversation, and I earlier talked about the report from the Federal Housing Advocate in which the federal government recognized, the encampments. And I know that they provided flow-through funding, I think, to the province with respect to their unsheltered homeless and encampments initiative. But when I look at, the advocacy that's being done at the provincial level from the provincial government, you see a recent bill where it's really focused on making it easier to remove encampments, which seems to kind of go against the guidance from the federal government. And so it's confusing to me to understand, this sort of push-pull between the provincial and the federal governments. Is that something that you feel exists? And do you receive enough support from the provincial government with respect to guidance on encampments? Is it clear where the province is going in terms of how to deal with this? Or is it more funneling money through the provincial government to support municipalities?
Thank you for the question, Chair. And I think as a point of clarification that federal encampment money actually flowed directly to the City of Ottawa. So they did bypass the province and a few Ontario municipalities. So we continue, as I mentioned, and that federal funding, which was $10.5 million, was really focused on taking that human rights approach. So in terms of all the documentation, our current unsheltered response guide, it is all focused on taking that human rights approach. From our side of things, in terms of how we're dealing with other levels of government, as you know, our police partners are directly sitting on our unsheltered task force, and they very closely work with us on those legal enforcement mechanisms. And I'll say as a community, we remain focused on taking that human rights approach, taking that supportive based approach first. And I'll say that's also as a community, I think what we generally believe, but we do find it to be the most effective from the resourcing perspective. As we know, police resourcing of social issues is very challenging. We want to get people from an unsheltered position into housing. So what we do is work closely with targeted enforcement mechanisms that I kind of discussed here when we cannot resolve it with the social services side, and having the police at the table to help us navigate the provincial federal waters is just making sure that we, at least as city staff, are working on lockstep in these issues.
Appreciate the clarification, and thanks very much to my colleague for bringing this forward and for my other colleagues for all the great discussion today. Thank you.
I have to echo that. I think this was a very fruitful and insightful discussion. I'm very appreciative that this has come to this committee and that we'll be receiving more information as a follow-up. I do know that our committee coordinator has a revised, amended version of the motion that he's going to put up. And I've been speaking with Councillor Plant, and she is amenable to the changes. So I'll give everybody a chance to review that. Okay. And if Mr. Brown wanted to comment, if that's amenable.
Yes, from staff side, this looks okay now. Thank you.
Okay.
Can I just ask a clarification question?
Of course.
What does it mean by impacted councillors only? If they have an encampment in their ward, will staff reach out, or will the offer go to committee members or anybody interested?
So when I read that, we would interpret it as impacted councillors as people who have had encampments in their ward. And again, because we don't have super accurate ward level data, we will err on the side of caution.
Thank you.
And I will also just mention, outside of this motion, our team is always available should any councillor or resident community association want a briefing on our encampment approach, some of the challenges. We're always happy to come out to those meetings and explain a little bit more.
I'm not seeing any other questions. Then as amended, is this item carried? Carried. Wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you, everyone. We will now go back to item I need my glasses here. 5.1, so that's the Ottawa Community Housing Corporation mortgage refinancing 2026 to 2028. We do have staff here to comment on it. But I do know there is no presentation. And I would invite Chair Kavanaugh, Chair of OCH, to maybe say a few comments, and then we can open it up to any questions.
Thank you, Chair. Just briefly, this is about remortgaging on properties that we currently have. I mean, we're getting known for our development, but it's extremely important that we keep the properties that are aging up in good shape. Just like anybody who owns a property knows, you have to keep it in top shape, and these are massive projects. So this funding is very, very important. I'm familiar with some of these buildings. And as you can imagine, they get worn down, and they are our assets with Ottawa Community Housing. So we need to keep it so that people are living in very good conditions at all times. And that means updating the plumbing, electricity, et cetera, et cetera. Major work. So I want to thank the team of the finance team at Ottawa Community Housing, and also our team here at the city for working together on keeping these very important assets, this housing in good shape. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Kavanaugh. Does anyone have any questions for staff? No. Seeing none, is this item carried? Wonderful, thank you. Okay, moving on to item 6.1, status update, Community Services Committee inquiries and motions for the period ending September 5th, 2025. Does anyone have any questions on this item? No. Is this item received? See, we currently have no in-camera items, and I have not received any indication of any notice of motions. And seeing none, we have no inquiries at this time and no other business. So can I get a motion to adjourn that? Our next meeting is Tuesday, October 28th, 2025. I'm fully expecting everyone to show up in costume. No, I'm just teasing. If you want, it'll make it more fun. But is this meeting adjourned? Adjourned.